season.
Hi guys, happy Father's Day. Shout out to all the dads out there. And just wanted to update you guys on several medical situations. I know you guys wonder, I get a lot of questions about the status of the various players. And I want to start with Tank Dell, because I was with Tank this weekend at a great youth football camp at Pridgeon Stadium, the Skills and Drills football camp. And that included Tank Dell and Jahdae Barron, Denver Broncos first-round draft pick. And, of course, we had Matthew Golden, the Green Bay Packers first-round draft pick, just like him, a fellow Longhorn, and Xavier Worthy of the Kansas City Chiefs, and also Rashee Rice of the Chiefs, previously SMU. And it was a great camp, and I just want to kind of update you guys on Tank, and then we'll run it down with the other injured players. So Tank, as you guys know, suffered a torn ACL, a dislocated knee, and tore his medial collateral and lateral collateral ligaments. So a significant amount of damage sustained in this injury. And that was, of course, in December against the Kansas City Chiefs. And so the most common question I get regarding Tank is, can he play this year? It's a complicated answer, but the nuance is that it doesn't make sense for him to play because it's another injury. It's a long-term injury. It's the kind of injury that you want to take your time with and make a full recovery. And while the Texans and Tank haven't set any timetable, they don't want to add any pressure to the situation. I know a lot of people want to have more clarity. They always want to have more information, but just I'll give you my read between the lines and also some inside sourced information on this. So with Tank, he's had 2 knee surgeries. He had the first one to repair the MCL and the LCL. So that was a successful procedure done by Dr. Walter Lowe, a longtime team doctor, now a second opinion doctor for the Texans and still one of the top orthopedic surgeons in the world. So he did that surgery. He also works with the Astros and the Rockets. And so they did that with a standard, procedure, and it was successful. And so obviously it's a gruesome injury. It had the dislocated knee. What they found out once they got further into the knee, they thought initially they had meniscus damage. If he did, he would have no chance at all of, being someone that could play, at some point in early 2026 or definitely be ready for that time. So what you're looking at here is, the ACL, the LCL, the MCL, avoided damaging the PCL or the patellar tendon. So if any of those had happened, it would be a much more career-threatening or career-ending injury potentially. And he did not have artery damage. That was very critical. So they did a great job. The emergency room in Kansas City at the local hospital, and then the follow-up. So after Dr. Lowe did the first surgery, then Tank Dell had an ACL surgery. So they reconstructed his ACL, and it takes a long time because the swelling has to go down before you can have that surgery. Another successful surgery. So 2 for 2 on good surgeries for Tank. And he has made significant progress. He's able to push sleds. He's able to jump. You probably noticed that, his leg does flex a little bit when he was walking, and noticed that. And I would say that he's made significant progress. I've been told that by multiple people involved in the process. So Tank, in great spirits. He didn't want to do an interview, and we didn't really have any type of discussion, so I'm not spilling any secrets from Tank. I'm telling you what I know independently. And yet Tank is doing really well. And it was great to see him and talk with him, and he was awesome with the kids. So yeah, I'm just kind of timing this to, I recently saw Tank. And so I think it's topical to give you guys an update on him. Obviously, that's his right not to do an interview. The team probably prefers for him not to do interviews at this time and just kind of take this time to concentrate on the healing process. And it is obviously an emotional thing. He's also had some other, setbacks since the former University of Houston star got into the NFL, including breaking his leg against the Denver Broncos while blocking in a goal line drill. Not really a good idea to have a 165-pound wide receiver blocking defensive linemen. I don't think Nick Caley will have that play in his playbook. So then it's a victim in a mass shooting at a Florida party, and he gets shot in the leg. He's very fortunate, did not have structural damage. It was a flesh wound, and he was able to come back. And he was playing very well last season, I thought, when he was getting the ball. Sometimes he wasn't getting the ball as much because of the presence of Stephon Diggs. But there were times where Tank had to step up. Remember the Jets game when they were missing other receivers, and he stepped to the forefront. And I think one day he will again. This is a high character, really determined, tough young man. I have so much respect for him. I've known him for years, ever since he was at the University of Houston was when I first met him. And I know that he lacks ideal size and durability. Obviously, it's a factor, but it's not from a lack of effort or a lack of toughness. He does his best, and he sacrifices his body, and he gives everything he has. He loves football. I couldn't really say it loud enough how much Tank Dell loves this game, and it's just been unfortunate that he's had the injury problems that he's had. But you look at, kind of what, Tank has gone through, and, it's been a lot. That's a lot of injuries in a short span. So that's why the thinking is wait until 2026 to put him back out there. Are there scenarios where I think he could be ready in December? Yes, that is realistic. It absolutely is. But it doesn't make sense because of, this is a time that he really needs to get himself right. And he's heading into a contract year after this season. So for Tank, it doesn't make sense. And it's not that he doesn't want to play. He wants to play. And he hasn't said anything. I'm saying this. I'm saying it doesn't make sense. And just to not expect to have Tank Dell in 2026. In 2025 rather, but to have him back for 2026. So that's kind of just the full Tank Dell update. And this was going back to D'Amico Ryans from the golf event they had back in May. And he says he talks to Tank all the time. He says Tank's doing great, good spirits on the road to recovery, doing really well in the rehab process, really good spot. Excited to see how that continues to progress. Wants him to continue to get better, continue to attack each day of the rehab process the right way, like he's been doing with a great attitude. He'll be back when it's time for him to be back. Nothing to rush. There's no set timeline, or we need him back by this certain day. We need Tank back when Tank is ready to be Tank, and that's good enough for him. And it should be good enough for everybody. There is no need to rush Tank Dell, and that's what I'm going to continue to reiterate. I understand there'll be updates in the last questions, and yes, he will open training camp on probably the reserve physical and able to perform list. They could also put him on injured reserve. They could just, shut it down. They could designate him for return. Doesn't mean that he will play this year. They can do whatever they want. But that's all procedural. In terms of what makes sense, no football in 2025. I know that he would love to play, but it may not be what's best for him. In fact, it's not good for him to play football this year. He needs the time to heal, to make sure the knee is great, so that when he comes back, he can be the old Tank Dell. And I know there are short memories, but just think about the deep threat ability, the rapport and timing he has with C.J. Stroud, the explosiveness, the run after the catch, the return skills. He does so many things so well and represents his team in a great manner. So, yes, Tank Dell, get well, take your time. And that was what I expressed to him when we talked. And he couldn't have been more friendly and polite about not doing an interview with myself and other members of the media that were there. So, yeah, just a lot of us that know Tank and have the utmost respect for Tank Dell. So, yeah, Tank, keep working, keep doing your thing. And I know there will come a day where he will play again. That's what I told him. I said, I can't wait to watch you play again. Take your time, get well, and keep doing what you're doing. And he thanked me, and it was a good moment. But, yeah, it was nice to talk to Tank and just to have a chance to. This is the first time since the injury that I've been around him, and just any chance to interact. So, but yeah, he's in good spirits, and a lot of those guys, including Matt Golden, we're talking about, when Tank gets back, watch out. Tank's going to make some noise again on the football field. All right, so as promised, I'll update you on some other players that will play football in 2025. Let's start with Joe Mixon. And just to kind of recap on what happened with Joe. Joe has a history of foot and ankle issues that bothered him last season, starting with a high ankle sprain from that hip drop tackle. And so he has aggravated his foot and ankle, and it was done not training with the team. And, he was working out, and he got injured. So he was in a walking boot initially, and he was limping, he was favoring it, but he's moving well now, and he's been wearing a protective brace. It's one of those lace-up ones you used to see in gym class back in the day, kind of an old school little brace, not an air cast, nothing like that. Didn't have surgery. My understanding is that at some point during training camp, he'll be ready. I don't know if that's the first day. I don't have that information to say yes or no, but Joe Mixon, and Nick Chubb, tandem, explosive tandem, very strong tackle-breaking tandem coming up. Okay, so Braxton Berrios, he tore his ACL last October, and he is also on track to do some stuff in training camp. He's been running on the side. He's been making progress. He's moving pretty well. I expect him to be ready. Jalen Noel had a soft tissue injury. It wasn't serious, but it was enough that they thought they should hold him out. We saw him running at a very high speed on the side field with trainers, and he attended all the practices. Should be fine. I was told with Dameon Pierce, maybe his ankle again. Don't know that for 100% fact. Heard that from one person that it could be his ankle. He's had a history of ankle injuries. Not serious. Expected to be ready for training camp. Anybody that has any kind of injury, they're not letting them practice in the spring. These practices are important, but not that important. And there's no point in someone playing hurt and not being at their best or aggravating their injury. So other ones, you guys saw Dalton Schultz get back out there. You saw Cade Stover's made a full recovery. He looks great after off-season shoulder surgery. And, of course, he had the emergency appendectomy that he already came back from in December. So going down the list and just looking at some of the positions on offense. So they have a fairly healthy group with the exception of the running backs and, wide receiver, obviously, with Tank. And then, going down the line, it's Brevin Jordan, another one. He had the torn ACL in September. He's made great progress, and he is expected back at some point during training camp. So some of these guys might not practice the first day. That is okay. That's kind of, something that happens. Some guys are not ready for the first day. What matters is the first game, the Rams game, and getting guys healthy and not having a lot of new injuries, because injuries do happen. It's 100% injury rate in football. So, I know a lot of players, a lot of fans rather should get very frustrated about media. They get very frustrated about injuries and it bothers them. Well, it bothers these players. Nobody wants to be hurt. They're doing their best. It's not from a lack of effort. They do all they can to get out there and be healthy and get on the field. So, looking at defense, Foley Fatukasi on track from that shoulder surgery that he had. So that's another recovery. Christian Harris, I get most of my questions about Christian, so let's go through on Christian. Christian has aggravated the calf injury that he had last year. The sort of a good news, bad news. Good news, it's not as bad as what made him miss most of last season. But the bad news is that he has a calf injury again. So very, I would say flexible athlete, explosive athlete, but very vascular, has high metabolism. He's very veiny, almost like a bodybuilder, but he's just a guy that's very lean, 4.4 speed, as fast as the corners on this team. And that's one of the reasons he's such a great downhill linebacker, but he does have this tendency to get dinged, and he has right now with the calf, that's the current issue. So the thought is that he will be ready for training camp. That's from D'Amico Ryans and Matt Burke, and independently, what I've heard, that Christian is on track. So looking at the rest of the defense, as you guys saw, Jalen Petrie made it back early from the torn pec and had a great spring, was making a lot of plays on the ball. So good to see that. Danico Autry was mostly held out because he's 35 years old. He worked on the side field and conditioning. He does have what I would call, a knee that will flare up on him from time to time. So something worth keeping an eye on. It was good to see Sheldon Rankins out there. He had viral meningitis while he's playing for the Bengals, and he's had some other injuries in the past, but he is healthy now. So he heads in with a clean bill of health, and that's good to see with Sheldon Rankins. And then I think that might be all the injuries. I'm just looking down the list here. If anybody else I've forgotten, I think that it's pretty healthy other than that. So it's, Henry To'oTo'o. I don't know what Henry's got. I know it's not serious. I've been told that. It's not a big deal. And he's also expected to be ready for training camp. So he didn't practice much of the spring, and they do expect to get him back out there. And Christian Harris. And as you guys know, it'll be a competitive situation at the other linebacker spot opposite Azeez Al-Shaair. So they'll have EJ Speed, they'll have Henry To'oTo'o, and they'll have Christian Harris. And I would expect them to go with the returning starter when training camp begins. Henry To'oTo'o, number 39, the Sam linebacker from Alabama. And I just think that that's, what they would do, in terms of the depth chart and how they would begin the season. So, just to recap, we've gone over all the injuries that I know of and giving you all the information I have. I'm not holding back. There's nothing up my sleeves. Giving you all I got. This is it. So that is my medical report. Dr. Wilson here, signing off. Please watch, like, and subscribe. Guys, thank you for all the responses. I know we are getting close to 9,100 as of the taping. And I'm of course, on Sports Sunday with Randy McElvoy, so we'll have that video for you as well. It was a great combo with Landry Locker and Cody Stutes, who are also outstanding YouTube channels. I recommend everybody check them out too. There are a lot of good voices on YouTube. Seth Payne, so many guys that are making some really good content. So I'm just honored to be in the space and to be a part of it and to have my own type of channel. And that's the thing. It's very individualized. And very soon, we're going to have my first live session. I kind of got over my phobia about live and figuring out how to schedule it and all that stuff. So guys, that's coming up soon. I will let you know about that on all of my channels to announce that and give you some time. And hopefully a lot of people can join and we can have that very soon. So anyway, until next time, guys, thank you very much. Of course, I am also on www.click2houston.com, KPRC2 television, and on the following channels on Twitter /X, Aaron Wilson _NFL, Instagram, Aaron Wilson 7128, and what you guys care about, YouTube, Aaron Wilson Sport. Thank you.